Now, Moldova and the Czech Republic are going to the polls this week. Both countries are having to contend with Russian attempts to influence the outcome by supporting candidates sympathetic to Moscow. Peter Conradi is the Sunday Times Europe editor. He is writing this up for the paper tomorrow. He joins us now from Prague. Morning, Peter.
Good morning.
So let's talk first of all about the Czech Republic and the characters who were involved in this and the challenges and pressures that come with that.
Yeah, so, I mean, these are, say to start with, I suppose these are two very different countries. They're both in what probably in Britain we consider to have been the former, or certainly was the former Soviet bloc. But the Czech Republic is way to the west, as it were. It's been a member of NATO for more than 20 years, a member of the EU as well. But, you know, the Russians are still targeting it. There's a lot of disinformation being pumped into the country. And what we have at the moment is the current Prime Minister, Petr Fiala, is a very kind of conventional, mainstream, Western-looking politician, former political scientist, a rather dry guy, I suppose not terribly charismatic. Some people have kind of likened his style to that of Angela Merkel in her prime. He's facing competition from a man called Mr. Babiš, who is a billionaire. He's been called the Czech Trump. You know, and he is to some extent benefiting, I suppose, from this Russian kind of propaganda, which is basically, you know, anti-EU, anti the war in Ukraine, anti-Green Deal, this kind of sort of the kind of thing that one sees really across Central and Eastern Europe being pumped out by the Russians and finding quite a receptive audience among a lot of voters.
I was going to ask you that what are the chances of his success and what are the issues in this election?
Yeah, I mean, it's Andrej Babiš, the challenger, has made the election very much about the economy. You know, like all incumbent leaders, I think that the current prime minister is in trouble. There's a tendency everywhere, I think, in Britain as well, to turn against the government. There seems to be kind of a sense of dissatisfaction everywhere. So it's largely about the economy, but the government is also talking up the threat from Russia. I mean, in the past few days, there's been a lot of concern about incursions in the air by Russian drones, by Russian military aircraft, kind of going deliberately, it seems, off course and just kind of testing NATO's defenses and so on. So there's been a lot of discussion about that. I mean, the Prime Minister has said rather pointedly that he as a child remembers the Russian tanks rolling into Prague in 1968 when they crushed the Prague Spring, this sort of uprising against communism and so on. So, you know, foreign policy is creeping into the contest because Mr. Babiš, though not a fan of Vladimir Putin by any means, is in favor of kind of scaling back military support for Ukraine and just gradually sort of trying to kind of extricate the country in any way from the conflict.
Let's talk about Moldova then, because there's pressure there and in some ways a more overt pressure.
Yeah, I mean, Moldova is a lot more vulnerable. And I mean, one could say that there's an awful lot more at stake there. I mean, Moldova, small country, just 2.4 million people, very, very poor indeed, with some, you know, very, very difficult sort of geopolitical location. You know, it's essentially sandwiched between Romania and Ukraine, very, very close to Russia. It's got a fairly large kind of Russian population, a degree of dissatisfaction also with the pro-Western government and the pro-Western president, who was re-elected last year, but is really concerned about the level of Russian interference that is going on, which is, you know, in a sense, not just in cyberspace, but through other kind of more conventional means, like sort of propaganda being beamed out by Russian television, through the Moldovan Orthodox Church, which tends to answer to Moscow, and also through some good old-fashioned vote rigging and buying.
Gosh. Peter, always good to speak to you. Thank you so much. That's Peter Conradi. He's the Sunday Times Europe editor. He'll be writing about this in the Sunday Times tomorrow, and he joins us every Saturday to talk to us about some of the big issues that are facing Europe right now.